Good morning.
Yes.
I've been asked to just say a few words introducing myself, although most of you, of course, will come across me before. But my name is James Poor, and I'm a retired Methodist minister with Unitarian leanings, you could probably say. But it's a pleasure to be among you again this morning. And we're going to begin, as is customary, with the lighting of the chalice.
Hello everyone. As ever, our statement of values. We welcome all who seek the meaning of life. We believe that human spirituality is wider than any one tradition and deeper than any one set of opinions. With respect to our Christian origins, we seek to explore truths from all sources. Our fellowship gives us strength and encouragement in daily living. Let us light our chalice. And begin with these words from the famous poet Thomas Heaney, The Cure at Troy. History says, don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, longed for tidal wave of justice can rise up. And hope and history rhyme.
Here and now, this company of those who are seekers, searchers, and pilgrims assemble in this place of meeting. Here and now, from our varied lives with their joys and sorrows, challenges and possibilities, we seek purpose and hope together. Here and now, we seek to encounter the beyond in our midst, that grace which nurtures and sustains our daily living. Here and now, we pause in wonder and awe. And in the silence, too, we confess that we're not yet whole, that we are still a work in progress, our high ideals sometimes betrayed by our compromised lives. May this be for us a place and time of new beginnings and renewed commitment. May it be so. Amen. Well, we've got 3 readings this morning. All of them are poems of sorts. And we're now going to hear the first, which is a poem by Welsh, he's a priest in the Church of Wales, I think, but wonderful poet. And he wrote something called The Kingdom. We're now going to hear that.
The Kingdom. It's a long way off, but inside it there are quite different things going on. Festivals at which the poor man is king and the consumptive is healed. Mirrors in which the blind look at themselves and love looks at them back. And industry is for mending the bent bones and the minds fractured by life. It's a long way off, but to get there takes no time, and admission is free, if you will purge yourself of desire and present yourself with your need only, and the simple offering of your faith, green as a leaf.
there was a television Songs of Praise quite a long time ago now, but it was celebrating some significant anniversary in the life of the Quakers. And
This is a poem by Sheena Pugh, Sometimes. Sometimes things don't go, after all, from bad to worse. Some years, muscadel faces don't frost. Greens rise, the crops don't fail. Sometimes a man aims high and all goes well. A people sometimes will step back from war, elect an honest man, decide they care enough, that they can't leave some stranger poor. Some men become what they were born for. Sometimes our best efforts do not go amiss. Sometimes we do as we meant to. The sun will sometimes melt a field of sorrow that seemed hard frozen. Will it happen for you?
don't know when it was written, but the message had not got through to Sheena about the equality of women, because there's a lot of reference to men in there.
Yeah.
Never mind, we pass over that quickly. We come now to a few moments of quiet reflection together when we reflect on our concerns, the things that trouble us, disturb us in our society and our world, and that we wish were different. Let us pray or sit in silence. We join our thoughts, spirits, and wills this morning to those who long for peace where there is war, and stability where there is tension. We join our thoughts, spirits, and wills this morning to those who have a care for justice and equity in our divided world. We recollect those who are victims and targets of racial hatred and discrimination. We bring to mind people who live in dire poverty, the homeless, the disadvantaged, those who simply need a chance to improve the lot of themselves and their families. Further afield, we think of countries like Afghanistan, where whole groups, especially women and girls, are disenfranchised and deprived of opportunity, and where democracy is a distant hope at best. Nearer home, our thoughts center on this place, people who are here in person or through Zoom, people who'd like to be here perhaps, but are with us in spirit instead. And we think of the special needs that each may have for health or healing. And we're thankful for memory, which links us each day with the past. We remember all who have touched our lives for good, and those who are no longer with us, but nevertheless remain a constant presence in our hearts, not just on special days, but every day. We join our thoughts, spirits, and wills. Am I deluded in thinking that as well as a yearning that's present in a piece of music, there's also a deep undertone of hope? Well, maybe it's just me, what I hear, what I see. I haven't come across this poet before. It's the third of our readings. I'm going to attempt it. Her name is Anna Kiemenska. So she's, no, I was going to say, so she's not from around here, but not necessarily. Goodness gracious, she could be Ukrainian, Russian, who knows. But this is something called Small Things. It usually starts taking shape from one word, reveals itself in one smile, sometimes in the blue glint of eyeglasses, in a trampled daisy, in a splash of light on a path, in quivering carrot leaves, in a bunch of parsley. It comes from the laundry, hung on a balcony, from hands thrust into dough. It seeps through closed eyelids. It's when you slice bread, when you pour out some tea. It comes from a broom, from a shopping bag, from peeling potatoes, from a drop of blood from the prick of a needle when making panties for a child, or sewing buttons on a husband's burial shirt. It comes out of toil, out of care, out of immense fatigue in the evening, out of a tear wiped away, out of a prayer broken off in mid-word by sleep. It's not from the grand, but from every tiny thing that it grows enormous, as if someone was building eternity as a swallow its nest out of clumps of moments. My theme this morning is living in hope. On the way here, I thought I should have perhaps called it traveling in hope.
That's right.
But we got here, and you got here, and that's good. About 10 years or so ago, Pam and I were in London for a family celebration. Our hotel was near Southwark Cathedral, so we thought we'd have a look around. We appreciate cathedrals, though we don't readily identify with the pomp and ceremony associated with much of their worship life. Nevertheless, we find them places of beauty, interest, and providing there aren't any school parties or gatherings of tourists around, peace. Southwark is a small cathedral, but clearly it's concerned with social justice, for instance, and that warmed our hearts. There's a fine memorial to William Shakespeare, who launched nearby in his London days, and indeed his Globe Theatre isn't far away. What we didn't expect to find was a memorial plaque to an American, Oscar Hammerstein II. In case you didn't know, Hammerstein wrote the lyrics for a whole range of memorable songs set to music by the composer Richard Rodgers, which really provided the backbone of musical theatre in the years that followed the Second World War, both in America and I think almost universally. Southwark Cathedral honoured his memory. He died in 1960 because his will provided £2,000, a tidy sum in those days, to support 2 choir boys at the cathedral. Now you may wonder why on earth an American should give a donation to a cathedral in this country. Well, it's possibly due to the fact that while his father was Jewish, his mother was the child of British parents. So I'm guessing that might be the occasion, that was the link that brought this about. But here's the punchline. Hammerstein attended the Church of the Divine Paternity in New York, later called the Fourth Universalist Society. In other words, he was a Unitarian, at least at some stage in his life. And the discovery took me with fresh eyes to his lyrics. They're full of moral uplift, but in a subtle way, not as we say, in your face. To cut to the chase, Hammerstein wrote a song called Cockeyed Optimist for the musical South Pacific, which contained the lines, I'm not going to sing it, be spared that. I hear the human race is falling on its face and hasn't very far to go. But every whippoorwill is selling me a bill and telling me it just ain't so. I could say life is just a bowl of jello and appear more intelligent and smart, but I'm stuck like a dope with this thing called hope, and I can't get it out of my heart. Not this heart. At risk of sounding like tweet of the day, a whippoorwill is what we call in the UK a nightjar, that is to say, a nocturnal bird. But back to the song. Can anyone in our world today claim to be an optimist, cockeyed or not? And what place is there for hope? The 24-hour news cycle, with its relentless narrative of doom and gloom, churns out stories of crises and our inept responses to them as a society. Climate change, the energy crisis, the cost of living problem, the war in Ukraine, the rise of populist leaders, the migration dilemma, not to mention the activities of Lucy Letby and others, who malevolently take the lives of the most vulnerable among us, the very young. And here in the Northeast, of course, we know better than most what the effects of an ailing economy are like. You know, having recited all that, I think I'll just go back to bed and pull the duvet cover over my head. Surveying the current state of affairs, it's easy to identify with the celebrated American wit Dorothy Parker when she said in response to the telephone ringing, "What fresh hell is this?" Of course, there's another side of the coin. There's an 800-page doorstop of a book on my shelves by a distinguished Harvard professor of psychology who argues that we don't live in uniquely violent times. Indeed, things have got better and better and better as far as violence is concerned in our society. If you search on the web looking for evidence that life could not be sweeter, you can actually find a website called the Center for Optimism. And again, those of us who've lived long can remember how primitive daily life used to be for us in our younger days, compared to the labor-saving devices, resources for entertainment and home comforts we have access to now. And think too of how attitudes have changed towards groups of people who were stigmatized in former days because of their sexuality or because they were handicapped or whatever, for whatever reason. Times have changed, and they've changed for the better in some respects. So maybe there's something to be said for the present. But on the whole, I'm deeply concerned that there aren't a lot of present grounds for hope, especially for coming generations. On top of all this societal stress as well, there are the difficulties that afflict individuals directly, just by being human in a sometimes inhuman world. Bereavement, sudden illness, mental health problems, unemployment, underemployment, where you've got a lot to offer, but you've nowhere to offer it. Poor housing, not being able to put food on the table. Situations where E.F. Schumacher of Small is Beautiful fame puts it, life is fired at us point blank. There's a Greek myth about a king whose name was Sisyphus. I don't think it's going to appear in the top 20 most popular names anytime soon. But Sisyphus was punished by the gods, it is said, for his pride and arrogance. He is condemned to roll a boulder endlessly up a hill. Each time he gets near to the top, the boulder slips out of his grasp and rolls back down, so that he has to plod down the hill and start the whole futile exercise all over again for all eternity. Now, all too often, that's how people can feel. Nothing seems to make any difference. Whatever you do comes undone at a rate of knots. There's a phrase I've only discovered recently that sums up this unholy mess. It's this, it's a bit of a mouthful. Multiple overwhelmings. Multiple overwhelmings. Too much of the wrong stuff coming down the freeway at us all at the same time. Where's the hope in all this? What does the word even mean? I guess for some, the response is always going to be to look for rescue from outside, from a higher power, from God. Orthodox Jews still look for the coming of the Messiah to put things right, especially with regard to the state of Israel. Evangelical Christians look forward to the second coming of Christ as the means by which the world's injustice and alienation will be resolved. And the other lot will get sorted out. I learned only the other day that way back in 1891, the great Sioux Native American tribe, preeminent for a while under Chief Sitting Bull in their vigorous resistance to the theft of their ancestral lands, took a passive turn. The so-called ghost dance movement encouraged them, instead of resisting, to perform a ceremonial dance which would bring about miraculously a new earth occupied wholly by Indians and full of the fertile lands, wild horses and buffalo herds that had been rapidly vanishing from view. Newsflash, it didn't happen. We're not far removed from all that when, at a more mundane level, we hope we might win the lottery, or we hope that a cure may be found for what ails us, or we hope that this might be the year that Newcastle United win something. as they say on the television, if you don't want to know yesterday's score, look away now. We refer to all this as living in hope. But really, there's very little we can actually do to bring about the state of affairs that we desire, at least the ones I've just been mentioning. Could it be that hope without action is pointless as, say, faith without works is dead? Hope, I want to suggest, is an active virtue, a chosen stance towards life that we choose to take, despite all evidence to the contrary. I want to share 3 insights for you, briefly, which may help in the search for a hope that we can work with, that actually makes a difference. I keep at home a file, Pam would tell you I keep at home a lot of files, marked exemplary lives. Exemplary lives. It's not full of cuttings about people who are perfect, because there are no such creatures. What there is are narratives of people who've demonstrated some redeeming human quality like courage or generosity or simple kindness or grace under pressure. There are also accounts of those who've overcome early disadvantage and achieved remarkable things, and of those who, to their great cost, have shone a light on neglected groups or have found new objects of moral concern. Let me give you an example. Fiona Hill grew up in Bishop Auckland in very modest circumstances at a time when the whole area seemed to be in terminal decline. So what's new? Her father advised her one day that if she was to make something of herself, she would have to go elsewhere, because, he said, there is nothing for you here. I don't know whether he said pet at the end of that sentence, but it seems the right thing to say. There's nothing for you here, pet. As it happens, there was a whole informal network of support. Distant members of the family, friends, the local MP, who was a Salvation Army officer actually at that time, and some people for the local authority, that enabled her to obtain a university place at St Andrews, to win a scholarship to Harvard University in America, to work for a distinguished research institute in the States, and ultimately to be employed in the Trump White House as a beacon of sanity among his staff. Throughout her ascendancy, her upward climb, Fiona had to face sexism in the Trump White House? Say it isn't so. Sexism and sneers about her working class background and her County Durham accent. But perseverance, ability, and the kindness of friends carried her through. Lives like that of Fiona are not meant for us to copy. After all, we're not clones, but they say something about the human potential for growth and good, something we need to find within ourselves, in our own way, and in our own situation. And in that possibility that there is something there lies hope. The second insight I find helpful, I think it's time for that glass of water. Excuse me a moment. The second insight I find helpful in the search for a hope that actually delivers is the suggestion that when we feel overwhelmed by multiple problems, instead of succumbing to panic and running around like a headless chicken, We simply do the next thing in front of us, and then the next, and so on, trusting the process, trusting our capacity to cope, not with everything all at once, but with each task, one step at a time. And that's what we have to do. There's a saying, God doesn't do house calls. Read into that what you will. But many aspects of our lives are beyond control. Nevertheless, the things that we can do something about, we should. Just because we can't aspire to build a motorway doesn't mean we can't help fill in the potholes in the back lane. Action itself engenders hope. Finally, and most important, we have to recognize that we're members one of another. Our overwhelmings, as I called them earlier, are not solitary challenges for lone individuals to face down. As Fiona Hill puts it in her splendid autobiography, no one does anything completely alone. Life is a team sport. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, of blessed memory, was an exponent of Ubuntu. That's an African word which carries the meaning, I am because we are. Our common humanity is a tremendous source of support, solidarity, and a ground for hope. And churches at their best, however small, can be places where this can be seen. Well, I started with the words of Oscar Hammerstein, and that's where I'm going to finish. There's an anthem associated with Liverpool Football Club, which is regularly sung on the terraces there. Liverpool, of course, is a city which has had more than its fair share of overwhelmings. Anyway, the song, as you might guess, is from the musical Carousel, and it is, of course, You Will Never Walk Alone. I want to suggest that although it's capable of a conventional religious interpretation, it is telling us that if we walk with hope in our hearts, we will never lack companions. Listen again. When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky, the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. Human possibility, human perseverance and practicality, human solidarity, reasons to be hopeful. Seek your soul and rest with loved ones where the fire burns warm. Do not retreat into your private world. There are more ways than firesides to keep warm. There is no shelter from the storm of life, so meet its eye and dance within the storm.